Welcome everybody to episode 12 of the Everyone Hates the Commissioner with John and Dan. We were hoping to have Dave on as well. We kind of had planned a little shit talking pod tonight because as you guys know, Dave is a Bears fan, and the Packers and the Bears play this weekend, but it didn't work out. He bailed on us for a Cornhusker game. So, but how are you guys doing?
I'm well, Dan. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm over COVID finally for the third time. I got to recharge the batteries a little bit, and I think I'm feeling brand new again for the first time in a while.
Brand new, fresh as a daisy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I do want to apologize for Dave not making it on, but he's always been a huge Cornhusker fan. You know, he's grew up in Milwaukee, and he's always told me for years, I can't wait to go and see some Cornhuskers basketball. That's my favorite team of all time, and he just bleeds red and gold. And he's constantly got Cornhusker gear on. He's always got the Cornhusker mascot hung over his bed. So this was a big night for him, and I apologize he couldn't be on. But Cornhusker basketball, it's bigger than UNC or Duke for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, we have a big Duke fan up there in Dan. Big.
Oh, Duke I didn't know that. Yeah, Dave loves Duke. Many Halloweens he went as Christian Leitner. So you would have been in good company. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be on. I think Dave was too. But when opportunity strikes, you just gotta take it, I suppose.
Yeah, and we took last week off. It was the holiday week, and with people traveling and just spending time with their friends and family, we took a week off. We took a breather, and here we are. We're ready to fire into the last half, or I guess last little more than a quarter of the NFL season. And yeah, this will be fun. I'm excited. So you guys have any weekend plans?
Go ahead, John.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have so I work for a health system, and the oncology department is putting on a dinner at Lambeau Field. It's like in the atrium. It's a free meal and 2 free drinks. So I work till 6 Friday night, and then we're going to that. And then we're meeting some friends we made at Cornhole at our arcade bar on Saturday. So
fun.
Nice weekend. Yeah.
Are you meeting a lot of people up in that area now?
There's some in the volleyball league we do that I knew from college but didn't know that well, so we're kind of getting to know them better. So nice. Yeah, I think organized sports leagues, even if you suck at them, it's a good way to socialize and meet people,
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Dan, what about you?
Nope. After 25 hours of driving last week, I will not be leaving my apartment.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I visited my family in North Dakota for Thanksgiving.
What city?
Minot. So it's kind of like the northwest side of North Dakota.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. It gets windy out there.
Yeah. It's always good to see the family, but that was a lot of driving.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've only done that. Have you ever done that drive, Nick?
Not to North Dakota. No.
Yeah, I've done it as an adult. I only did it once. I went up by Glacier National Park for 5 weeks when I was in college, and man, I couldn't believe how long that state takes to get through, but how windy it gets in the wintertime, man. That is like serious. You can't be like sitting on your phone. You have to be 10 and 2, focusing, because all of a sudden the breeze will kick you a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I have to work Saturday. Monica's babysitting Friday, and I think we're gonna get the USA men's national team plays Saturday morning. I've been keeping up with them. I've watched their games so far, and I was really excited to see them pull off a victory yesterday. So we advance into the round of 16. So hopefully, I think we kind of are going to meet our match against the Dutch on Saturday morning, but you never know. You just never know. So yeah, then maybe get our Christmas tree.
I was surprised that Iran has a soccer team.
Oh, it's Iran. It's Iran.
Iran. My apologies.
Nick, you guys do a live tree?
Yeah, we did the for the well, I had a little short fake one since I moved out on my own for the longest time. You've probably seen it, Dan, when that Christmas that you came over. But
I don't know. I don't remember much from that night.
but last year was the first year we got a real one, and I love the pine smell in the house. So we're gonna try it again, even with a little puppy, but we're gonna give it a go, see what happens. So
John, do you guys do anything for Christmas? Do you go Christmas tree hunting?
No, actually, someone was telling me they have like these really cool Christmas traditions. Like they'll go caroling and they'll go to a movie, or they'll do these, like volunteer. And I guess mine and my family are just pieces of shit. We just get together and eat a ham.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. It's just about
Yeah,
who you're with.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Dan? Anything interesting?
No, I do go see my grandma every Christmas. Nick knows this. Yeah, so every Christmas I have to go see grandma. So that's really the only tradition that I have. My family lives in opposite ends of the country, so other than going to see mom and grandma, I will just be at home, probably eating a ham by myself.
Nick, just the live tree, Nick, or what do you?
No, we go and spend I usually spend Christmas Eve with my parents, and then this year we're gonna go. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna go and see Monica's family on Christmas Day, I think is the plan. So not as much driving as you, John, but enough. I get my fill for on the holidays.
Nice holiday weekend this year too. Christmas Eve is Saturday, Christmas Day is Sunday.
Yeah, and I actually am starting a 25-day vacation on the 9th, so I'm going to have the month of Nick coming up really soon. I'm looking forward to that.
God, Nick, I will say not a lot of people could do what you do. I mean, that's a difficult schedule.
It's so
thank
hard.
you for your service to the city of Fond du Lac. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get into some football, do you have I don't know. I saw John, you maybe had a bottle of water, but do you guys have a drink of choice tonight? Or is
I
it
just finished
me?
I just finished my workout, so I've got water tonight. I've been really boring this month.
I got some Basil Hayden's here. Actually, I just killed it. But
Have
you
have
have
just
to
have a little extra for me tonight, Nick.
you have to have Basil Hayden's on this podcast, right?
Yeah, that's looks tasty. We had some eggnog and Jameson this weekend.
Oh, nice. How was
Not
that?
bad.
Like a mixer?
Yeah, eggnog and Jameson. It wasn't bad. I will say though, I think my favorite winter drink is hot chocolate and peppermint schnapps.
Ooh, nice.
Peppermint patty or something it's called. But yeah, dude,
So,
I was actually gonna have one, but the taco meat took too long to cook, so.
actually, one more thing before we get into football, I want to start a new kind of a mini segment here each week that we do this, and I know this is going to excite you, Dan. But I want to, and I know that this was it was a long, like a holiday week and everything, but I want to ask what the best thing that that Dan and John and the future guests had made for lunch, dinner, or any other meal in the last week. Is there anything that really stood out to you that you cooked that you're like, hell yeah, or just the best thing that you cooked? Because I love cooking, and I made a hell of a sandwich, which I'll tell you guys about. But John, did you make anything exciting over the holiday weekend, or just your tacos? Or
Nick, why don't you start, since this is a surprise segment? You get us going with your Sammy, and then we'll be stewing.
Okay, well, John, you would have had one of these Sammys had you come over on Friday night. But I got up at
Cuban.
Yes, I had never had a Cuban sandwich before, and I've seen them all plastered all over social media. So I got up at a little bit before 7, got to the grocery store right when it opened up, and I got a pork butt. And I smoked that it was supposed to be for lunch. Didn't work out because we had it didn't get to temp, but I smoked it for 13 hours. And when I was all done, let it rest for about an hour, and just completely fell apart. So we just had some sourdough, Swiss sliced ham, some homemade smoked pork butt, and pickles and mustard. And I'm telling you, man, that was one hell of a sandwich. It was one of the best I've had.
Did you just do straight mustard? Or did you do mayo and mustard?
Nope, I did actually half yellow mustard and half spicy brown. Give it a little twist. So
Nice.
very
Yeah,
good.
big fan of Cubans. That's an excellent sandwich.
Yeah.
Great idea. Whoever thought of it.
Well, if you guys didn't make anything, because I know there was probably a lot of food being made. Is there anything that you made or anything that you had was kind of stood out?
I told my sister if I was going up, she had to make her cheesy potatoes because she used to make that for the family for Thanksgiving every week. So she did that for me, made a lot. So I was eating cheesy potatoes for like 5 meals and I was not complaining. So I didn't cook it all last week. The week before though, I was feeling chilly because it's been getting cold out. So my chili, I don't follow any recipe, so it's always different. I made a huge batch of chili, and I'm kind of feeling that again this week. So I might have to redo that again.
Yeah, and
Nice.
chili's so that's one of my staples actually. I was gonna make it this week, but I guess the only real thing I made was this taco meat for a potluck tomorrow. But chili to me it's one of the staples. I don't do anything fancy. I just buy the McCormick mix or whatever. But dude, that's a cheap ass meal, and that's good in the wintertime.
Oh yeah.
That hits the spot.
Yeah, especially in this cold, miserable winter that we have usually. So, well, all right, that was fun. Maybe we'll, expand on that in the future. But
Definitely.
so all right, I want a big update from you, John, on your status in the league and how you're doing, and then let's kind of talk about that.
Pick'em league or fantasy football?
Well, I know that we want to talk about the Pick'em League too, because I'm not sure if this is going to be your podcast for the Pick'em League, but let's start with fantasy and then we'll.
Sure.
So.
Yes, I am 4-8. I had a surprise win against Jacob. He put up a good fight. I think he was projected to win by 20 and he lost by 20, so that was pretty neat. That's what keeps you coming back. It's like golf. 80% of your hits are shitters, and then when you get that nice one every like 5 swings, you're like, oh yeah, that's so good. And that's what that felt like. But I've only had it happen 4 times this season, so yeah, so not well. I would say in fantasy football and dynasty, you kind of have to win on trades, I think. And I think I've done extremely poor on trades. So before the season started, I traded Ramondre Stevenson for Allen Robinson. And now Allen Robinson is on IR. And he hasn't done shit the rest of the season. And Ramondre, Bill Belichick cannot stop going on about him. So that was a poor trade. I also do a little bit regret trading you
Rashad
for Naeem Hines. Yeah, that's a little bit of a regret right now. But my bright spot is I did somehow get Treylon Burks, and so I'm not complaining about that. I have no running backs, but this rookie draft in 2023 does have a lot of running back options. I don't know how many will be good. But it looks to me from what I've read, there's at least 6 or 8 that are worth drafting and potentially even worth starting. I don't know how it'll shake out. It's all going to depend where they land. But my plan currently is that I think when the draft comes around, people will get draft fever. And I'm hoping I can trade 3 of these, not all 3, but maybe 2 of these first round picks into something like an established player, and preferably a running back, but we'll see. Yeah, there he is. There's Dan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is going to be, we don't know because this is our first year of the Dynasty League. I know we did 1 rookie draft and that was after they were drafted, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be, a whole year since anyone got to draft anybody. And I think people are going to get real, like a buck in heat, they'll just be running around doing crazy shit. And I hope to profit from that. But maybe
Especially not being able to draft your whole team anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone's hinging on those 3 rounds of rookies. So I agree. I think it's going to be a free for all.
Yeah, I think, and that the only reason I decided to do this because I did trade away Jonathan Taylor and T. Higgins, and right after I traded T. Higgins, then Jamar Chase went on injured reserve, so that was really sweet. But that's how it goes. But yeah, I was reading on Reddit. They have a dynasty league, dynasty fantasy football Reddit thread or a group. There's like 300,000 people in it, and they were talking about how every year when it like the draft picks are never worth more than like the day before the draft or the day of the draft. So like for 2024, you can get those draft picks pretty easy, like next summer, let's say. But as the draft gets closer and closer, like in everyone's mind, they become more and more valuable. So I don't know, we'll see. It's an experiment. I think hats off to you, Dan. You have drafted an excellent running back core, and I think that's pretty important in fantasy because
you can thank Stu for drafting them and then trading them to me.
So did you only draft McCaffrey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Jesus.
And I remember
I drafted McCaffrey and Pollard.
And Pollard's good.
Stu traded me Chubb and Walker and Saquon.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Thanks, Stu.
I think, like you said, when we do draft again, I think obviously Stu's going to be at the forefront, and that's when I'm going to get a whiteboard behind me, and I'm going to keep track of Stu trades. But he's going to be right at the front of all of the moves that day, because I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of moves on draft day, and I'm really excited to see it.
Do you guys have any rookies?
Can we draft in person again and actually record? Because it goes pretty quick because it's 3 rounds. Should we just live feed it?
That'd be awesome.
And then have someone come up to the microphone and say, with the third,
that would be awesome at the
with
podium.
the third pick in the first round, I will be selecting.
We should try to figure that out. That'd be funny.
I already told Nick if somehow like goes to the toilet bowl because I own her first rounder. If she somehow falls in, I get the #1 pick. I already know who I'm drafting just to spite every one of you guys.
Yeah, like he doesn't have enough
running backs. Don't worry about it.
So then who are, besides like the, Bijan, and then there's that guy from Alabama, are there any rookies at running backs that you guys like?
I'm going to get the #1 pick, and I'm going to draft Bijan Robinson, and I'm just going to deuces to everybody.
With all those running backs.
There's no way that M gets worse than me or Kai. Like we have
but team. I'm trying to put it out in the universe that it's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you never know, I guess. Maybe if you paid her on the side, she could really tank for you.
She's actually got a tough schedule upcoming.
She does, yeah. And that's what gives Nick hope and me sadness. But yeah, I'm really cheering for Nick and Bo to lose because I have their picks. But it is fun to have other people's picks because then you can cheer against them,
Well, I actually snuck out of well, I shouldn't say I snuck it out.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, you smoked him.
Yeah. Bro underachieved a little bit, but it helped that I got almost 50 points from Josh Jacobs last week. So, yep, that was a big win. And then I got Kai this week. So, and then I can't remember the last week who I play, but I think I have a pretty legit shot at ending at 500, and then I maybe sneak in at the 6th seed. So
you have Jake.
No, that's a tough one.
But he's got he's got quite a few people on bye, so it could be a toss up.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we're gonna have to keep in mind too is, and I'm glad that I did at the start of the season when I was setting up the settings for this, but there is 6 teams on bye in week 14. And I know that there's a lot of leagues out there that never changed their settings. So a coworker of mine was telling me that their playoffs actually start in week 14 and end in 17.
Shitty.
Yeah. So, and he's got Jonathan Taylor, and the Colts are one of those teams that are on bye. So that he's pretty upset about that. But
I played Stu in week 14. He's got JT on bye, Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Alvin Kamara, Fields, Montgomery, Brian Robinson, and Taysom Hill are all on bye.
His whole fucking team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad that that all worked out, and we'll have to make sure to keep an eye on that in the future. So, but um, yeah, Dan, how you feeling about your team? Like it?
Yeah, Brian was on 2 weeks ago, and we had a gentleman's bet where the loser would change their team name to something that supports their player. I'm 8-4, sitting in second in the league, but I have lost twice to Brian, so
Ah.
he is going to have a little bit of revenge coming his way come playoff time.
Nick, I don't know. Is the teams that make playoff, is it 3 from each division, or is it the top
No,
6,
it should
period?
be the top six. So that's why next year I think I'm just gonna implement, or I'll not. I'm gonna obviously leave it to a vote, but it shouldn't matter. We'll just do one whole division, or we'll just one division with all, because it's the top six teams anyways.
Oh,
So
it is this year anyways?
I believe so. So
Oh,
As of right now, though, there's 3 teams from each division that are the top 6, so it's worked out fairly, pretty fair.
yep. So let's
yeah,
see
you're right.
here.
Yeah,
I
what's
guess while
next on
we're
the docket?
Well, I guess we could. I got some other fancy things that I wanted to talk about. But did you want to go jump into your um the Pick'em League?
Oh, I can just talk about it real quick.
Yeah.
Specifically, I can just talk about you guys since you're on. Um, so yeah, overall, we've really picked it up in the second half. Early on, there were very few people over 500 in the first like 6 weeks. I think it was for some reason a very difficult. It seemed more difficult this year than last year. Picking games, I don't know why. Maybe just because there's a lot of free agents moving around, big changes in the league. I'm not sure. But we've turned it on. So I think half of the league is at 50% or better. Nick, you are at 96 and 84. So you're in the 95th percentile of all pick'em teams in the country. Dan, you're at 95 and 85, tied with me, and we're at like 94 percentiles. So um, against the rest of the people that do this on ESPN, we're doing pretty good, like our top 9 or 10 people. But we've had a lot of repeat winners in the league. And
Yep.
I was surprised with 21 people that there would be, I figured it'd be very difficult to win twice, 2 weeks out of 18, just because there's so many different. I mean, I don't know, the odds are you're 1 out of 21, like 5%. But yeah, I think Bo's won twice. Will Cleveland's won twice. And then my buddy's wife, Jenna, she won twice. So yeah, that's like I don't know if I told you guys, it's like our society. There's the extremely rich, that are doing very well and making a lot of money off of it, and then everyone else at the bottom has just lost their 180. I shouldn't complain. I think I've gotten like $140 back, so
I
I'm not
felt
doing bad.
I felt slighted a little bit. Every single week, John, you send out a little congratulatory text out to all the winners, and this week you fucking didn't when I finally won this week.
No, I said great picks, everyone.
Oh, you did? I didn't see that.
Yeah,
But usually it's the 1, 2, 3, good job, everybody. I'm like,
yeah.
this son of a gun. Unless
Week
I
12
missed it.
results. Nick, Bo, John, great
Oh,
picking, everybody.
oh, I didn't see that. My mistake. I take it back.
Yeah, I got a system. I'm not gonna divert from the system.
Dan,
What
how
have
do
you
you like?
guys thought about it? Do you think, I mean, do you find it interesting? Like, does it keep you more enthralled on Sunday and Monday nights?
I
If
love it.
we're,
It's a lot of fun. I hate that I haven't won one yet because I've cashed 3 times, but I haven't
yeah,
won. I feel like I've been in the top 4 or 5 every week, except I think one week I was just bottom of the barrel. This week, if Indy actually would have won on Monday night, I probably would have gotten first because of the tiebreaker. But I was glad that Nick got his first dub. If I'm not going to win, I'll root for Nick.
Hell yeah. I was happy. I was happy to bring home the victory for the first time this season. It felt good.
yeah, because we were just giving you shit at Thanksgiving that you haven't won a dime.
Yep, I know.
You're,
I'm right
you're
up
pretty
at the
good at
top.
darts, though.
Well, I'm just okay. But yeah, I love the Pick'em League. Like you said, it keeps me interested on every single game. Because especially like on like the noon slate when you have like 7 games going, you're looking at the scores at the fourth quarter. Okay, you're like, okay, I got this one, and then for if you think like out of 7 games you got 5 of them right, well, all of a sudden something just fucking flips, and now you only have 3 of them right, and you're like, fuck. But
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Nick, while we're on the topic of fantasy and pick'em, before we get into NFL talk with locks and Obi's picks and everything, do you want to go through the fantasy
Yes.
draft projections for next season?
Yeah, why don't we do that? And then I wanted to see your guys' opinion on who's like some guys that are gonna like maybe lead each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, and then kind of guys who are gonna take a big jump. So yeah, why don't we do that while we're on the fantasy topic, and then we'll get into some NFL talk. But why don't we start with some fantasy projections next season? We're about, what are we, 12 weeks in? So what do you guys, who do you think is gonna like maybe lead in each position, and then but we'll do that, and then we'll kind of we'll do the big jump after that. So let's do a quarterback first. I'm not gonna try to this isn't gonna be an exciting pick, but I think it's pretty obvious. I think Pat Mahomes is gonna run away with it, being the number 1 quarterback next year again, because I think he's just gonna have that he's going to build that rap sheet with all those receivers. You know, they got Tony, and then MVS, and a lot of those guys are under contract for the next few years. So I think he's going to continue his tear. Kelsey. So Dan, what do you think?
And they've been limiting Kelsey's reps. Obviously I have Kelsey, so I watch every Kansas City game. And you know, I'm a pretty big Chiefs fan. I just always like to read and Mahomes, but they rest Kelsey quite often. He's not out there for 90% of the plays. He is just extremely efficient. But as he continues to age, I think that's going to be really important that he stays fresh. He's not out there blocking, you know, for 60 plays. So I do think that's going to help his longevity. And man, that guy him and Mahomes just have that combo, which I think obviously, you know, you're big on with Jamar Chase and Burrow. That unwritten, like Rodgers and Devontae used to have too. They just work so well together. So yeah, I agree with you. I think Juju's a free agent, but other than that, they're pretty much locked and loaded and ready to go for next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I'm gonna actually go with Jalen Hurts just because I think he can run more than Patrick. Patrick's still mobile, but he doesn't run as much. So I guess just to be different. And Jalen Hurts is pretty young, so
yeah,
I don't know if he's hit his quote unquote prime yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. There's actually a lot of free agent quarterbacks next season. Lamar Jackson, obviously, Brady, Jimmy G, Cooper Rush, Mike White, Geno, Jacoby Brissett, Andy Dalton, Bridgewater, Darnold. Obviously, some of those names or whatever, but that's a lot of people that could shake up the NFL landscape that could really affect some fantasy lineups.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do want to say quick, I was disappointed to hear that. I didn't know that Jordan Love was taken before Jalen Hurts by the Packers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was a 3rd-round pick.
What is the
50,
thought?
52nd or 54, I think.
Oh, so second.
Yeah.
What is the thought behind that? The guy played at Utah State.
It's just the tools he was big, had a big arm, and he was athletic, and he was a little raw, and they thought they could just kind of groom him for a couple years and then let him go. But I don't know. We don't need to get into that. Maybe when we get some Packers talk later about Jordan Love. So, well,
Running back?
Yeah, running back. I had I have been listening to this really cool podcast. It's a new company that came out, and it was actually promoted by Jim Rome. It's called Sports Injury Central. Been listening to these guys talk, and a lot of them are doctors, and what they do is they kind of they give each NFL team a score on how healthy that they are, and kind of talk about that again. And they give, it changes each week with like who's in and who's out and stuff like that. But they're really, really something that they really, really harp on is that ACL recoveries take way longer than maybe like you and I would think, just because a player comes back 11 months later, a year later after they tear it, there's usually that next year there's a big drop off in productivity. So I think we saw that with Saquon Barkley, where he struggled a little bit last year, and now he's really fully healthy. So I am gonna go, and I think Saquon's just going to be getting better. I think Brian Dable in another year in that system, I think he's just going to do some more good things there. And so I think Saquon might, as long as Austin Eckler doesn't have another 100 fucking catches next year, I think Saquon might be the number one back next year in fantasy.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to hinge on what the GM does in the offseason. Obviously, it starts with Daniel Jones. Watching the Giants, it can become extremely frustrating when Daniel Jones just cannot threaten a defense on the outside. And as good as Saquon is, you just can't be successful drive after drive when you're seeing 8 in the box. If they can get a quarterback that can threaten the defense, Saquon would be, the number one weapon for sure. But I think it's going to hinge on Daniel Jones and if they can add another playmaker on the outside.
John?
Yeah, I would say I'll take a guy everyone's down on. I'll go Najee Harris. I think early on this year, everyone was real hot on him. He was like top 5 running back, and he hasn't done that well. But the offense has kind of been a little atrocious in Pittsburgh. So I think another year for Kenny Pickett to work with those receivers, and I'm sure they're banged up like anyone else. But I think that Najee may be a good buy right now.
Yeah. Well, he needs a lot of help yet, and he needs to get healthy. But yeah, they need some help. I think they have some solid weapons. I think that offensive line needs a serious upgrade. So, but I think the guy's got a lot of talent. He's got a ton of talent. He just needs some help.
Oh, for sure. I'm not as down on him as Brost was on the pod a few weeks ago. But watching Pittsburgh, obviously, because I have Kenny Pickett, so I'm very invested in the future of that offense. Najee Harris looks like the 3rd best running back on his own team, honestly. So, yes, a lot of talent. Yeah, they got a real rough offensive line, and they're still kind of figuring out, getting their groove. But I don't know if I could invest in him right now. Obviously, a lot of potential, like you said, John. Also, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, so he can be a bell cow guy, which is what you want. So the upside is there. I get a little bit worried about how they're going to utilize him.
That's fair. Yeah, I think it's all there. You don't really see it often now. There's not really bell cow backs anymore. It's always running back by committee. There's very few backfields where you get the main running back 90% of the time. Even like Derrick Henry, that's not the case. I feel like on 3rd downs they're putting that other running back out there. So
yeah. Well, what do you guys think about wide receiver, Dan? Why don't you start with that one?
Obviously, I want to see how Chase comes back these next few weeks. I'm a little bit nervous with the Rams and Cooper Kupp being injured, as much as I think he was clearly the number 1 fantasy wide receiver this year. Jefferson's definitely, I think, right now, because he's healthy, he's in a league of his own. But I think the upside as that Bengals team, they're only going to get better because they're going to keep investing in that offensive line. They're going to get more consistent. So I actually think, as far as teams next year, I think the Bengals are going to be a team to watch out for. Obviously, they're having a pretty decent season this year, but I don't see a drop off next year. I see them getting better. So I think the ceiling with a young Joe Burrow, I'd say Jamar Chase is the guy. But right now, I don't think you can really argue against Jefferson.
John?
I go Jefferson.
Yeah.
That'd be my pick.
Yep, I did too. And right now, Stephon Diggs is the leading wide receiver in fantasy football. And I think I'm not saying he's going to have a huge drop off by any means, but like you said, Justin Jefferson's in a league of his own, and I agree with everything you said, Dan. If Chase can stay in the field all season, that offense is, like you said, is just going to get better and better as the longer those guys play together. And but JJ, man, Jetta's unbelievable talent.
You still
So
got guys like Devontae killing it. DeAndre Hopkins, man, that guy is just amazing.
mhm.
They're getting a little bit longer in the tooth. They're not old by any means, but I just think that youth with JJ and Chase kind of is that separating factor right now.
Yep.
Again, I'll come back to quarterback play. If Kirk Cousins starts to show his age a little bit, obviously he's looking great right now. Carr's starting to drop off. Who knows what's going to happen with Kyler Murray in Arizona? So a lot of that wide receiver production is going to heavily rely on the wide receiver or on the quarterback, which is why I think Diggs is doing so well, obviously, with Josh Allen.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I don't know. We might all agree on this one, but I'm going to let John start off with the tight end position. Who do
Yeah,
you think's
I don't think Travis Kelsey declines next year.
No,
So
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree 100%. I mean,
he's
almost
the guy. He's like Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles. That's just who Mahomes is looking at every time. So
he's almost doubled second place in fantasy points. Not quite, but almost. It's incredible. So real quick, let's just we can maybe dive into these guys a little bit later, but Dan, why don't you run through all four real quick on players that you think are going to take a big jump. Do you have some guys?
Yeah, guys that are going to take a big jump. I'm going to go first off with a guy we just talked about, Kenny Pickett. I think that offense is figuring themselves out. I think they've become a little bit more dynamic in the last couple weeks. Starting to see Pickett throw with a little bit more confidence. He also likes to run, so from a fantasy perspective, you're going to get some cheap points there. So from quarterback perspective, I really like him. And then for running backs, I think depending on what happens with Antonio Gibson, I think Brian Robinson is going to be a really interesting name to watch. I'm not like fully sold on him, but if Gibson gets traded or goes somewhere else, I think that's a pretty clear indication that the team wants to feed Robinson. Obviously, Washington's a team you don't really know where they're going right now, so it's a little risky. And then my third, I don't really have a fourth, but my third, I'm so upset that I had to drop this guy because I had to play with waivers that 1 week. Kadarius Toney, I know he hasn't stayed healthy, but if he plays 17 games on a Chiefs offense, holy shit, he could be a top 5 wide receiver.
Yeah, he could be. Absolutely. John, you got some guys that you think are going to take a big leap next year?
Yeah, I would say quarterback wise, I guess one that sticks out to me would be Justin Fields. He's been playing pretty well fantasy wise. I know they haven't been winning the past few weeks. I know the cap space really opens up for the Bears next year, so if they get better pieces around him, he may do even better than he has been the past few weeks because he's a very mobile quarterback as well. Running back wise, I would like to see more of what Breece Hall can do. I know he did really well at the beginning of the season. And you can have like hot spurts and cool off, but I think if he comes back after, was it an ACL for him? Okay. Yeah, if he comes back and he still plays that well, I think he could be for the next couple of years a top 5 or 10 running back in the league. And then wide receiver, I would have to say I would like to see what he hasn't played yet because he's injured, but I'd like to see what is it Jamison Williams?
Yeah.
Is he the rookie wide receiver in Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to draft a new quarterback in Detroit as well. So him and Amon-Ra, I think their stock will go up. Nothing against Jared Goff, but I don't know. I think there's better out there.
Yeah. So Justin Fields, even though he started off really shaky, he's the 6th highest scoring quarterback in our fantasy league, which is really incredible. But I got T-Law, love T-Law. They're really buying into him down there, and they said this last week with that win against the Ravens, like they were really he had statistically the best game of his career, 29 for 37, 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then they put the ball in his hands at the end of the game, and he made those throws. He made a couple really good throws at the end of the game. So hopefully they kind of got to build on that. Second, a guy, even though he's done well this year, this is a team that could have two top 10 overall draft picks in the Houston Texans. And I think Dameon Pierce, if they give him a new quarterback and they go out and get another couple offensive linemen, because they're going to have a bunch of cap space as well. I think because it's unfortunate the second the Texans get down, they get down by a lot and they get down by a lot fast. So they kind of just, they're not really handing the ball off, which I don't blame them. But I think at the same time, they might be saving Dameon Pierce a little bit for the future, because why hand the ball off to him 25 times a game when they're down by 30 points? It just doesn't make any sense. And they're not going to, you don't want to run the clock out. So I think he's gonna new quarterback. That'll help him in the next year. And the whole thing about Breece Hall, I think he is a really, really good talent as well. But like these whole ACL things, he's not gonna make it back till halfway in the season next year, if it's about a year. So I could see him really taking a big step in year 3, maybe not next year when he comes back. But in terms of wide receiver, I really, really like what Drake London is doing. That guy is a monster. Maybe not as much of a dynamic playmaker as some of these other rookies, but big, strong, can jump over everybody, kind of like a Mike Evans. So I'm excited to see what they can do. And one guy who I think is going to take a leap, and we thought he was going to take a leap this year, actually went back a little bit, but really hoping Kyle Pitts takes a step forward next year. So.
Oh boy, I think people are going to be on that roller coaster for a long time, man. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but other than that, let me see here. Let's do our top 5 people that we're gonna think are going to be in the draft, and then we'll move on to Obi's picks. John.
Right.
Oh,
so I've got John, and then obviously we thought we were going to have David on tonight, so I'll just talk about David's picks. But John, do you want to start us out with, this would be like in a redraft format. So this last year, just to set it up, the top 5 picks, not unanimous, but this was pretty consistent across the board. Jonathan Taylor was everyone's de facto number 1, right? There was no question he was number 1. You had Austin Eckler, was typically 2 to 3, dropped in our league. You got Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Derrick Henry, and Dalvin Cook were kind of all sprinkled in that top 5. But there was a pretty set 3 or 4, right? You might have picked Chase or Jefferson or Kupp, but it was pretty much the same 5 or 6 guys. This year, if you look at this graphic we got up, we have a lot of disparity. So, John, what made you think these 5 guys for next season?
Yeah, so after Nick talked about the ACL for Cooper Kupp, that might be a mistake, but I say Justin Jefferson, number 1. I just think the talent's there. Quarterback's decent. I guess Breece Hall is an argument that he, may not be back till midway through the season, so that might be another one that may not do well. But I think Christian McCaffrey should improve the longer he's there in San Francisco. And I know they just had Elijah Mitchell got injured again, so they have Jeff Mason, but I don't know how often you want to use Jeff Mason. And I really think Amon-Ra, I think he would be my big one. Like, that's different from everyone else. I think if they get a decent rookie quarterback, they may not win a lot of games, but if they're just, hucking the ball down every play, he may have a lot of opportunities for some big touchdown receptions. So
yeah, and I think when Jameson Williams does come back and he comes back healthy, he's such a fast player. And Amon-Ra isn't the fastest. He's typically out of the slot. But if you have a Jameson Williams going down the field and stretching that defense, Amon-Ra is going to eat in the middle of the field next year. So that's probably a really good. That'd be a really, really good pick. So, but I guess I'm gonna jump into mine if that's all right with you, Dan. Obviously, I'm gonna go with the guy I was just talked about in Saquon. I think he's a complete back. Nick Chubb, I think I'm going to take him second. I love Nick Chubb, but, I'm not sure if you guys remember. Well, Dan, I'm sure you remember, but probably 4 or 5 weeks ago when we were talking about, maybe not even, just a few weeks ago, it was just you and I were talking about Nick Chubb, about the fact that he was only getting 50% of offensive snaps. That hasn't changed. That number is exactly the same, and he is still putting up the numbers, but I think until he gets to like 60 to 70. I don't know if he's going to be a top. Not that he's not talented enough. I just think that they're splitting carries, and that might change with Kareem Hunt most likely exiting Cleveland next year. But Kenneth Walker, I think he's only going to get better on a run first team. And then Jefferson, like I said, I think he's going to be the best receiver in the league for the top 2 or 3 for the next probably 6-7 years. And then Eckler, for as many balls as he gets thrown his way. I mean, the guy only has a little over 500 yards rushing, but I think he's caught 80 balls already. So that's 80 points added on to your total already through this year, that on a full point PPR, of course. So,
and what's so demented is that your 3 top players Dan has on his team, and then he also has McCaffrey, which is Dave and I's number 4. So
yeah,
I don't know how that all happened. I didn't let that happen, but that is it's unbelievable, Dan. So good for you.
Thanks, buddy. And actually, like, I'll hop on David's picks here, because my top 5 is actually 5 running backs, and that's not that I don't love my wide receivers, but I just think wide receiver is so deep now.
Yeah.
The value of these running backs it's just too valuable to get these guys. So David's got 5 backs with Chubb, Eckler, JT, McCaffrey, and Walker. So just a couple tidbits. McCaffrey, I think if Mitchell can stay healthy, he's going to be able to keep CMC fresh. And San Fran is going to want to do that. They're not going to give him 25 touches a game. They're not going to need to, especially if Trey Lance, I know these are ifs, but if Trey Lance comes back and is, close to what they think he can be, they're not going to have to give McCaffrey this 25 touches a game like Carolina kind of felt like they had to do. McCaffrey's going to be able to be really efficient with his 16 to 20 touches a game and still get his fantasy points, but stay fresh. I think Kareem Hunt is gone from Cleveland. I don't think they can pay him. And then with Deshaun Watson coming, as Jacoby Brissett's been playing pretty well this year, Peoples-Jones and Cooper have been solid, and Njoku's been great. But I think having Deshaun Watson is going to lighten up that box. Chubb is averaging 5.2 yards a carry, and that's 5.2 yards a carry when the other team knows he's getting the ball.
Yeah.
So now take another guy out of the box and lighten up that box. He's going to, again, be extremely efficient. And I think with Kareem Hunt gone and Jacoby Brissett gone from those damn quarterback sneaks on the goal line, I do like Chubb's upside. So I like all your guys' picks. I'm not touching Breece Hall at number 3. I think he's a real deal, but I'm not touching him after an ACL. But David's picks, I would throw Barkley in there and then rearrange them a little bit. But I like where your guys' head's at.
Hell yeah.
But yes, John, thank you. Top 4 running backs. Let's go.
Yeah, keep up the great work.
Well, shall we get into our favorite segment of the day?
Let's see it.
And then so Dan, I'm going to run to the bathroom while this is playing, and if I'm not back, I'm gonna let you take over his record. All right.
All right. So yes, Nick, as he said, it is everyone's favorite time of the week. It is time for Obi's picks. We were not on last week, but Nick did have Obi do a pick for the Minnesota New England game. Unfortunately, Obi picked New England, so his record this season is not going so hot. But let's see who he's got for tomorrow for Buffalo at New England.
Welcome, everybody, to week 13 of Obi's picks. This week, we have an AFC East divisional matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. Should be a really good game. Looking forward to that. All right, Obi, let's see who you got, buddy. Come on. He thought about the Bills, but he's going to go with the Patriots, everyone. He's going with the Patriots.
So you see the paw of approval with their New England at home. New England's a tough team, but John, how are you feeling with Obi's pick there for tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's a good pick in our Pick'em League. That's actually who I took. I think that the Bills have been winning, but they've been keeping it close. And I don't know, when I get these interdivisional rivalry games and there's a larger spread than like 3.5, I tend to go with the underdog, especially the Patriots are at home. Like, I know that that offense, the Bills, and they are a great team, but I think that Bill Belichick can find a way to keep it close. And, you know, they may not win, but I think they could lose by 3-4 points. So I like
I
that pick,
agree.
Obi. I support it.
Yeah. Now Obi's picking outright, but I'm still
Straight
with
up.
you, John. Yeah, because if you look at the graphic there, New England played last Thursday, so they've had a full week to plan for Buffalo. Buffalo didn't have that same advantage on a short week. Bills are banged up. Josh Allen is banged up. New England at home. You know they're not going to get blown out, so I think that might be the best pick. Nick, what do you think for the game tomorrow?
Well, Dan, I have to correct you. The Bills did have the exact same because they played the Lions on last Thursday.
That's right. I apologize.
So, but they
Excellent work, Nick.
but they had a short week. They both had that short week, and then both took have a week in between. But you know, Bill Belichick, he's a mastermind. He's always played tough on defense, but I think their offense just cannot keep up with Buffalo. Did you guys, by the way, did you like how Obi was like he was right there and then he whoop took off?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very fair setup you have. I like that, Nick. I did want to add, I think Bill Belichick in another era, he might have been like a mastermind for Nazi Germany. You know, he seems like that evil, like kind of like, you know, sneaky, like fox your way around people. And I could see if he was born maybe just 30 or 40 years earlier, he might have been
You
on his
never
way
know.
over there.
He might be one of the sons of one of those scientists they brought up over from Operation Paperclip. You never know. You know, he got that.
He could be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, but yeah, he always finds a way to win those games where you're like, no way, the Patriots. And they're not, they're going with Mac Jones, right? That Bailey Zappi isn't playing. No, okay. Yeah, I don't know. And you would think you'd look at it and you're like, okay, Mac Jones versus Josh Allen should be an easy one, but that defense always plays well for New England, even if they have a bunch of like free agent guys or like not talented
Yep.
guys, they seem to play good. So
But here's another stat. Bill Belichick always talks about taking away the other team's number one. I was hoping they were going to do that last week because I was playing against Brian and he had Justin Jefferson, but Jefferson went off for 9 for $139 and a tutty.
wow.
So Stephon Diggs owners, do not worry. The number one is getting loose. So
yeah. Yeah, I think the Bills honestly are going to be, I think they're the top two receivers there, Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. I would argue are maybe a little better than Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. So
yeah, especially when you add in the third with McKenzie and yeah.
True. Yeah, and he's a rookie, isn't he? Or a second year?
Second, maybe.
Second year. Okay.
Well, I guess I think though, you know, when we're watching Thursday night games, they can tend to be a little choppy and everything, especially at the beginning because they're on some, you know, short week and everything. But we might get a pretty good game tomorrow night for a Thursday night game since they both had a full week of rest. So I think it should be a good game. But yeah, so I guess I do want to talk about a couple. There was something that I wanted to see your guys' opinion on, and that is, since you were talking about the cap a little bit before, John, about the Bears having a bunch of cap space, but there's a lot of teams that don't have a bunch of cap space. So was there any players that you think are going to be on the chopping block, not because of what they've done on the field, but just because of their cap number? Do you have any guys in mind that you think might be done?
Yeah, and actually, Nick, while you guys are talking about that, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. I was actually on overthecap.com this week. Check that website out if you guys haven't looked. There's some crazy stats out there, so I'll pull this up just to generate some conversation. But John, do you have any initial thoughts?
Sorry. Yeah, I have So this is again a Reddit source I got this from. Jonathan Taylor's only making $2 million a year.
He's on his rookie contract yet though.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I had Dalton Schultz. I think he's on a 1 year. I just Googled it. It's 11 million that he's on. And I think he might be, I don't think the Cowboys can pay that. I'm
Well,
not
they
quite sure.
franchise tagged him last year, correct? Is that why he's getting paid 11? I think
It
they
could be.
tagged him.
Did they?
That sounds familiar.
You
I
might be
just-
right, 'cause I think they were. Were they working on Lawrence or somebody else? They were going to tag him, but they ended up working out an extension. I think Nick. I'm not sure, but I feel like Nick, you might be right there.
Okay. Yeah,
I know he might be gone because I don't know if they have the money to pay him 11 million.
Especially with those two young tight ends that they have as well behind them.
yeah. And Dalton Schultz very well could be the top if they do let him go, you have a good point there. He probably will be the top tight end on the market next year. So he's a very solid player, and they do have Jake Ferguson, Barry Alvarez's grandson, down there in Dallas. So, anybody else that you think's gonna get the axe in spring, John? That because of cap purposes.
I think Leonard Fournette's a possibility. Potentially. I know that he's on a 3-year contract. I guess he's not technically a free agent, but I could see them moving on him.
I think he might be a free agent. I'm trying to move my screen so I can see.
Nope. He's
He's not. That's right. They just re-signed. He was a free agent last year, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
they signed him to a 3-year, $21 million deal, which is why that average is 7. And actually, you say that, John, that he is on my list of guys, and not that I want the guy to lose his job in Tampa Bay,
You do.
but I
You
kind
do,
of do
Nick.
want
You
him
do
to lose
want
his
him.
job in Tampa
Yes.
Bay, so Rashad White can take over. But that is a lot of money. I mean, it's a pretty good amount of money. Not that he's a bad player, but I think Tom Brady's going to retire, and they're way over the cap this year. They're overpaying a lot of guys, and they're going to have to make some serious moves in the offseason to get under and get younger. And I think Leonard Fournette might be towards the top there. Another guy who isn't on this list because he is not a skill player, but it pains me to say this because he's a fan favorite, and I don't think it's gonna make sense because but they're saying David Bakhtiari might be out in Green Bay next year because of the large cap hit that he has.
How much does he make a year?
24.
I think he average, yes, but I think he's on the hook for like 31 on the cap next year. And for whatever reason, which I think is just stupid, is that he's even in the conversations of this. So even though he's making, he's around 30, and maybe you could pull that up. Dan, is it pretty close?
29 million, but if they cut him, it's $23 million in dead money next year.
Exactly.
If they cut him in 24, it's only 11 in dead money.
So that's what I don't understand, why David Bakhtiari is at the top of this thing. Why cut a guy? I mean, I understand he's had some knee issues, but why cut a guy just to save $6 million and have 23 in dead? It doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm hoping that it doesn't happen, but there's some serious traction coming behind that one. So hopefully.
And speaking of dead money, do you know the Green Bay Packers only have one player right now that is taking up dead money? One player. No, in dead money, Amari Rogers is the only. Did you say Aaron or Amari?
So I get you. So dead money is when they're off the team, but they're still getting paid by the team.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
He is the only player for like $500,000. In contrast, the Chicago Bears have almost $87 million of dead money this season.
Oh, is that because of Khalil Mack?
Khalil Mack, 24 million, Robert Quinn, 12 million, Roquan Smith, 9 million, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, Jimmy Graham, Tariq Cohen, Danny Trevathan. I mean, it's insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's crazy. So I thought that was a fun fact. But
who is that second guy you said?
Robert Quinn?
Yeah.
Who the hell is that?
He's a
That's
defensive end. They traded him to the Eagles.
yeah, but they're still paying part of his contract. So when you
That's
trade
nice of him.
somebody, part of the terms is certain teams pay for certain there's stipulation on who's paying what. So after the season, that's why the Bears have so much cap space next year, because this dead money is going to be gone and they can kind of rebuild. So I mean, props to Chicago, I guess, for starting over fresh. But if I'm the GM, because Nick and I love to play the GM game, if you're the previous GM of the Bears, like, you should never get another job in the NFL. I'm sorry.
You suck.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Well,
terrible.
Well, I guess look at this. Jamal Williams only making $3 million a year average. I know he's on the last year of his deal. I believe he only signed a 2-year deal worth $6
Yep.
million total, but that guy is way outplaying his contract. He could probably make some serious money this offseason.
So how's that a stat for you? 8 running backs in the league are making 10 million or more, and there's only 3 that are making 15 million or more. But there are 37 wide receivers making 10 million or more, or 25 making 15 or more. Christian McCaffrey, I forget, I think he'd be like the 18th highest paid wide receiver or 21st highest paid wide receiver in the league. Just blows your mind.
It is nuts, like, because you could use Christian McCaffrey as a wide receiver. And like, yeah, when I was looking at the average there on your little infographic, I was like, damn, wide receivers, the top 25 on average make 3 times as much as the running backs. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do not let your kids be running backs.
No.
Don't
And
do it.
I actually looked up the lifespan too. It's actually not as different as you think, because it takes everyone into consideration, like free agents and stuff. But obviously, the average lifespan and overall health of a wide receiver is much better too. So yeah.
So while we're talking money and these skill players, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to have a really serious decision to make next year. They just paid Devontae Adams. They're paying Derek Carr a lot of money. They paid Darren Waller. They paid Hunter Renfro. What are they going to do with Josh Jacobs? The guy is leading the league in rushing yards. He's second in fantasy points this year, only behind Eckler because of those 80 catches. I mean, they declined his 5th-year option this last year and drafted Zahir White in the 4th round. I think they're kind of hoping that White was going to take over, but Josh Jacobs on a contract year, tearing it up this year. Do you think they're gonna? But Dan, you think that you said they have to? I mean, but how much do you pay? How much do you pay him? I mean, he's only 24. I get that, but you think he's gonna get that $15 million ish a year?
Well, I mean, again, that's the argument, but we just looked at the numbers. I think Hunter Renfro is making 15, 16. You're telling me that Hunter Renfro is more valuable to your team than Josh Jacobs? No. So I'm with you. I'm not looking to pay my running back first, but really doing some digging this week on that Over the Cap website was just so eye-opening to how these GMs are building their teams. I'm not saying you go give a running back, a 5-year contract for $100 million. No, I'm not saying that. But a guy that's proven to do it, he's a character guy. They like him in the locker room. He is still young. He is in his prime. He's clearly the most valuable player on their team, even more than Devontae right now, I would argue. You've got to re-sign that guy. I don't understand where the question even starts with him. So I would say, 4-year contract at 60 million, I would do it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize he was that young. I think preseason, a lot of fantasy football experts were not high on Josh Jacobs, but they were clearly wrong. That was a good get on your behalf, Nick. I think he was one that a lot of people were avoiding, and I don't know why.
So I've always, going back to when he was drafted by the Raiders, I think he was like in the low to mid 20s in the draft. I was always really, really high on him. And I feel like I've had him on at least one of my fantasy teams every single year. Because he came out of Alabama, in a very good program, but he was in that running back room when they just were fucking loaded. So he didn't have to be a 3-down back. Not that they would in Alabama anyways, but he had just a very, very few touches in receiving and running the ball. and he was still drafted in the first round. So the guy had a ton. It's not like they use and abuse him in college, kind of like where you could say like AJ Dillon on the Packers. They just handed them the ball every other fucking play. Josh Jacobs hardly touched the ball in college, and he was still a first round pick. So I was really high on him once he came out in the Raiders. So I've always been following him pretty closely. So when I had a chance to get him there in the, I think it was the 6th round, I had to take it.
And I was actually thinking about that this week, Nick. As I'm sure we'll talk about our fantasy players of the week coming up here. If you get into the playoffs, which I think you have a really good chance with your upcoming schedule and how your team is playing, if you get into the playoffs and somehow sneak in the top 3, Josh Jacobs has to be the fantasy player of the league this year.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
I mean, the guy is just unreal.
Yep. And it very could happen because Jamar Chase is coming back this week, and the Bengals are going to need to get hot if they want to get a good seed. And if that offense takes off and Josh Jacobs stays hot, man. Oh, and I know you said that wide receivers are a dime a dozen, Dan. I know that you like wide receivers when you're throwing the football to them, but they're not your first pick in fantasy. But I will say I was looking. I have 4 of the top 22 wide receivers in fantasy this year. That leaves the other 18 to you 11 other guys in the league. So did really, really well in that. And one of them is Garrett Wilson, who's a rookie, and Christian Watson is on his way up that ladder too. So I'm loving my spot at a
Did
wide
you say you have four of the top 22 wide receivers?
Yeah, in the league.
Oh, that's interesting because I have 5 of the top 17 running backs.
Well, that's pretty good too.
and the number 1 tight end by a mile. John, who do you have?
I have Russell Wilson.
John has high hopes for next season.
Yes, he does.
That's how it goes.
I do like that. I was not a big Treylon Burks guy before the rookie draft this year. I was not a fan of him coming out of Arkansas.
Neither was I.
Yeah.
But the last 2 weeks, I think he could be the next AJ Brown. I hate that they made that comparison, but if they feed him the ball, he showed he can go get it. He had that hustle touchdown on the fumble. So I do like what you did, John, to set yourself up to have a little bit of little bit of sparkle next season.
Yeah, that actually fell into my lap. Bros just offered me him and Sky Moore for Mike Williams. And the way I look at it, when you draft rookies, I think it's just kind of throwing darts, and maybe the more you can have at wide receiver, running back, you're just hoping one will hit. I think if anyone would be lying to you if they said, oh, they know, because you don't even know if Bijan Robinson will be like the next Saquon Barkley. I know people are saying that, but I mean, there's a lot of injury could derail him. He goes to a shit situation. So
yeah, I just told Nick, wait until I get the number 1 pick. And because running backs don't go in the top 5 anymore, right? They don't get drafted by bad teams. They get drafted by good teams at the end of the first round. Yeah. I told Nick, I said, wait until he gets drafted by like Buffalo or Baltimore, and I take him number 1. Again, I'm just trying to be a jerk, but
you're right. If he would go to especially Baltimore, because they love to run the ball so much, that would be like a paradise.
I mean, disgusting. Yeah,
people would. I think whoever has the first round, that first overall pick, if he would go to Baltimore or a team like that, I think people would give up a lot of shit just to pick him, to draft him. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%
for sure.
Well, should we do our players? And I think, John, you have you call it big ballers of the week.
Yeah, last week.
Well, let's do last week's, and then what we think next week.
So the guy that I thought impressed last week was Mike White.
Yeah,
315 yards. That's actually not bad. No, right? For a backup quarterback. Yeah. And I think he's better than the MILF Hunter. The MILF Hunter is, I think, that's what he's going to be best known as. I think his future is very dark. So,
yep. At least on the football field. Yep.
Yeah. Maybe with the older women, he'll have good luck. But yeah,
more success there.
Yeah. So good for him. But on the football field, have him in your thoughts, because I don't think the future is bright for that young man. But yeah, Mike White looked good. I don't even know where he played in college. What's his story?
He was drafted by Dallas, I believe. But it might have been the same year or the year before Dak. And then obviously when they had Cooper Rush, it just didn't make a lot of sense to keep him. So then he went to the Jets. And I'll say this, he was making some very decisive throws this last week, which I really liked out of him. Whereas Zach Wilson sometimes just kind of like flinging it around. I thought Zach White was very decisive with where he was going with the ball. And I think it showed with 315 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he played at Western Kentucky in college, and he was drafted by the Cowboys in 2018.
Yeah.
And I love Dave's pick. Garrett Wilson had a hell of a game, and his progression is obviously you need a good quarterback to be a good receiver. Well, that's not entirely true, but especially when you're a young receiver, you want to have somebody that can get the ball to you, and Zach Wilson was not. I was really hoping that Zach Wilson was gonna kind of take off this year. That hasn't happened, but Mike White, if they have him starting going forward, Garrett Wilson's going to be, I think he's going to be a really, really solid option. And then, well, obviously, I as much as I gush over this guy, I'm going to do it again one last time tonight.
Yeah.
Well, how can you not go with Josh Jacobs with more than 300 total yards, 2 touchdowns, and then over 48 fantasy points? So
he was the leader.
He was. Yep. He did a good job there.
Yeah, he's doing good for you, Nick. He knew that he was on your team. He said, "Oh, I'm not going to let Nick down this year. I know he really wants to make the playoffs. He spent so much time."
Yeah.
Yeah, he did look good. I honestly haven't watched the highlights, but it looked like a dominating performance.
Mm-hmm.
If you look, Josh Jacobs has been on this list 3 times. A lot of Knicks players on this list, but
it seems skewed to me. It seems a little biased. I don't know what you think of it.
Couple Bengals there, little Josh Jacobs, Christian Watson, but very deserving. Obviously, we didn't have our show last week, but Nick and I picked Travis Kelce and Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams had the 3 tutties. Kelce had 3 tutties. So pretty good group of players we got up there, other than Cooper Rush, who was selected by who?
That was me. I love the backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I love the backup QBs.
And to be fair, and I love the shit talking you guys are giving me about those players, but you go back and look back at those weeks, man.
No, they're
very well deserved. Very well deserved.
Josh Jacobs, I'm telling you, man, he's just putting that Raiders defense or offense on his back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we go over our locks and upsets?
Yeah. And I think because we've got David's picks on here, because obviously we thought he was gonna be on here, but I don't know what happened. A 4th lock got added onto the graphic.
Oh, really?
Okay. We'll see what happened.
Wow.
Yeah. But John, do you want to start us out with who your lock and upset of the week are this week for the NFL?
Yeah, I think I just got to remember what I told you. Yeah. Okay. So if we're just picking straight up, I would take the Eagles. And I forget who they're playing. Nick?
We forgot about player of the week.
Oh, shoot. Well,
damn it. It's all ruined.
It's all ruined.
It's all fucked.
I'll look into who the Eagles are playing, and then John, why don't you start off? And why don't you start with your player of the week?
Yeah, next week I got T. Higgins. Let me just look quick who the freaking
Chiefs. It's on there.
They're playing the Titans.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that'll be a big shootout. Bengals and Chiefs. I think that'll be a fun game to watch. And I think that you said Jamar Chase is supposed to be back?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Well, maybe they'll limit him because he's a little sore. He's tender.
And either way, right now, especially like you said with the suspected shootout, I don't even know if Jamar coming back is really going to hinder Higgins that much in this game. So I think he's a pretty good pick regardless.
Yeah, I like. I would predict the Chiefs will get up by a little bit, and maybe the Bengals kind of bring her together in the second half and make it a game. So there's a lot more passing probably later in the game. But yeah, I think he's looked great. I mean, he's a big body. I mean, especially when they get in the end zone, I don't know why Joe Burrow would look anywhere else than a 6'4" man that can jump really high. So
Yeah, and then David and Nick have two running backs playing against each other. Obviously, David had his bear, David Montgomery. I don't know about that pick, David. I don't agree with that. I think the Bears they should sit Fields again, honestly.
Yep.
But Nick, you've got Aaron Jones, who Green Bay has finally been feeding the last couple of weeks. But why'd you pick him this week against Chicago?
Well, because Chicago traded away all of its best defensive players, and their defense is putrid, and they just got blown out by the New York Jets and Mike White. No offense to Mike White. So
Mike White. How dare you say shit about Mike White?
So I just think that the onslaught is going to continue in Chicago this week.
I agree.
I hope it does.
Now we've got our here. We've got our locks and
boom.
upsets.
Oh man, yes. So the Eagles play the Eagles play the Titans.
Yeah. I think it'll be close, but I think the Eagles will find a way to pull that out. So I'm not picking against the spread, right? Am I just picking straight up?
Just
straight up.
Straight up, yeah. So they are favored by 5.5. So I didn't want to be too obvious, but I didn't want to take like a team that's favored by 10.5, which I guess the Cowboys are favored by a lot. But
yeah, there's some pretty tight spreads this week.
Yeah, that's how we like them. We like the spreads tight. You know that, Dan. Yeah. So Eagles, Jalen Hurts, great defense. Be pulling for him.
Interesting.
And David's got the Browns against Texans with the return of Deshaun Watson. But Nick, you've got a Baltimore team coming off of a loss.
Yes, but they are also going up the biggest disappointment in the NFL in the Denver Broncos. And I hope
Broncos Nation. Let's ride.
I don't entirely like listening to Lamar Jackson when he gives an interview, but I hope he wipes the fucking floor with Russell Wilson this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that, because how much I dislike Russell Wilson. But my upset I'm gonna do right away, and this is a tight spread, John. You like your tight spreads. The Steelers are actually dogs against the Atlanta Falcons this week, and I think they're gonna continue playing. I mean, I know the Colts are kind of a shit show right now in Indianapolis, but I think they're gonna pull off a W against Atlanta. They're gonna kind of keep rolling here. So
I like it. Mine, no matter what the Jets do, they always get disrespected by Vegas and the NFL community. And I think they're going to just surprise again this week, even though it shouldn't be. The coach he's done a good job with that team. And I think that the Jets will run the ball down the Vikings' throats. And I think Mike White has another good game. Maybe not 3 touchdowns, but I'll give him 2 and 280 yards.
Yeah, and David had the Dolphins against the Niners, which is a really interesting game. The Dolphins absolutely let off the gas pretty early last week. I think Tua played one drive in the second half against Houston. That was over pretty quick.
They almost didn't cover that too. I saw that.
I know. I was
time.
watching that. I was like freaking out. But for our viewers that don't know that other lock, that is a pile of gummy bears, which just happens to be my team logo, Deep Treats. Deep Treats is a 51.5 point favorite this week against Mr. John. So that is my lock of the week. Just throwing that into the graphic there.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
I love that.
Well, you never know, Dan. That's how they play the game, brother.
That's how they play the game.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like pretty rough sledding for me, but I'll still let the boys play.
But Nick, you moved back into the lead this last week. The guest went 0-2, and you went 2-0. So you retook a lead.
Absolutely. So we like to
well
see.
Done.
Good job, Nick. Your expertise shines through again.
I know it's been a good week. I won in both my fantasy leagues. I won in the Pick'em League, and I'm 2-0 from last. Yeah, we're on a bit of a run right now. But
look out.
as we're talking some more NFL here, I wanted to ask: do you guys have a couple teams that are going to take some steps backwards next year, and then on the contrary, some steps forward? Do you guys have a couple teams in mind? Let's start with some teams that are going to go backwards.
Can I say the Packers?
You think the Packers are going to go backwards? I guess you can.
Okay. I'll say it. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. It seems to me like the fan base is sick of Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers is sick of Green Bay. That's kind of what I see. Maybe I'm reading it differently, but I don't think they're gonna let him go. I think he's gonna play another year there, and I don't know if it'll go very well because there's not really any free agent wide receivers they can get.
I agree that the fans are probably very sick of Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand. I'm kind of tired of hearing it because I just don't. I mean, has he had a rough season? Yes, but I just don't get why he's hated so much when Brett Favre was doing almost practically the same shit, and they were pissed that Brett Favre ran out the door. But anyways, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is sick of Green Bay. I think he really does like it here. I think it's just a thumb injury and then just kind of a whole new bunch of new coaches and loss of talent in the wide receiver room was just really kind of built up there. But I don't know if they're going to go backwards. Maybe I'm not saying that they're going to be a Super Bowl contender next year, but I have a couple here.
4 and 8. It's tough to go backwards from that.
That's
fair. Dan, why don't you give me your backwards? Because I got two of them here, and I can go with either one if you take one.
Yeah, the team I'm going with isn't a knock on the team. I think it's more of the situation with the other teams in the division. But my team is Baltimore. Obviously, if they don't re-sign Lamar Jackson, that team is in major trouble. Everyone knows they're going to pay him. They have to. Their entire team is based around him. I personally like watching Lamar. I don't think I would build my team around him, but I do like him. I mean, he's clearly a franchise quarterback, deserves to get paid. He makes that offense go. They're really well coached, and their GM does a really good job of building that team. But I don't know how long they can be successful with just kind of like this backyard ball. I think teams are starting to kind of figure it out a little bit. And their defense has taken a huge step back this year. So unless they fortify that, they're in a division with the Cincinnati Bengals, who, again, we talked about earlier. I think they're up and coming. I think they're going to be the team to beat next year. You've got a very young Pittsburgh team that's extremely well coached and extremely well-run organization. And then you've got Cleveland, who obviously the jury's still out on, but if Deshaun works out, again, Njoku's been playing well. Amari Cooper's in his prime. Peoples-Jones. You've got Myles Garrett on the defense. So my pick would be Baltimore because I don't know how long they can keep doing what they're doing in a very, very competitive division moving forward.
I like it. So I'm going to go. I have two here. I'll just touch on them real quick. But I have Minnesota. I think that the Bears and the Lions are going to take some steps forward next year. I think, especially with all that cap space that the Bears have, like you said before, John, and Justin Fields is looking good. If they go and get him another weapon on the outside, I think they could really make a good splash next year. Cole Kmet looks good. They just have to solidify that defense. And I think it's just going to make the NFC North a little bit tougher of a division. I don't think the Packers are going to have as bad of a year again. I just think that it's just going to kind of be a meat grinder in the division. So I don't see them really running away with it like they are this year. The other one I have is Philly. Philly has not really beat any really great teams this year besides Minnesota. Earlier in the year, they almost lost to the Lions at the start. They had a bunch of really, really close games that they snuck by. You could say that they beat the Cowboys, but the Cowboys had Cooper Rush at the time. I think Philly, and they as the Minnesota, I forgot to say this about Minnesota, but Minnesota's got a lot of they're going to be in some cap issues next year. They have some aging veterans in Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson. Adam Thielen is not going to be Adam Thielen for much longer. So I think they're going to be giving up some good veterans at some point in the near future. And Philly's kind of the same boat. They're in a really, really tough division. And they've got some good players that they went and traded for and brought in. Like they brought in Ndamukong Suh, not saying he's a game wrecker like he used to be, but there's some of these older players that they brought in just to kind of fill in and have some good depth. I just don't see them being a one-loss team through 12, 13 weeks next year. So
Yeah, I liked how you talked
good
about Chicago coming up because a lot of people gave Jacksonville a hard time this year. They sent a lot of money to some real questionable contracts. But if you look, the vast majority of those free agents that Jacksonville has picked up have actually seemed like really good deals now. I was one of them. I like Christian Kirk, but I was like 72 million over 4 years. But now looking at the wide receiver contracts that we just saw, and you and I talked about it with Jefferson and Chase coming up with those contracts in the future. 4 years 72 might be a steal.
Yep.
So I think for Chicago, this offseason is, I mean, I guess I'm playing Captain Obvious right now, but this offseason and who they're sending their money to is going to really determine the next 4 to 5 years of that franchise. Obviously, they're going to have a really good pick. I personally would trade down if I'm them, unless they really fall in love with somebody. But if they send out 2 or 3 really big money contracts and they don't work out, they're going to be right back in the bottom of the barrel real quick.
Yep. I agree with you there. Not that I'd be that upset about it, but John, what are you thinking over there? You got something brewing.
About you want my team to explode next year?
Yeah, I would love to hear that. Or at
Okay,
least take a step forward. Maybe not explode, but if you think somebody's going to explode next year, I'd not literally, but figuratively, I'd love to hear it.
an explosion. I'll take the Jaguars. I think Trevor Lawrence has improved. They've done a great job with their offense, picking up free agents, and I think it'll be that coach's second year with getting the
Doug Peterson.
the locker room right, getting the schemes right, whatever. I honestly don't know what's going on with their defense. At the beginning of the season, it seemed decent. It hasn't since, but I just think that's another team with a lot of young players that could explode.
And if they get another top 10, top 12 pick to put on their defense, man, if they have then and Trayvon Walker kind of turns out to who they think they're going to be, because they thought he was raw, had a lot of talent, but raw, and then you have him opposite of Josh Allen. That could be quite the duo rushing the quarterback. So, and don't forget about, like Dan, you had mentioned last time we talked, Devin Lloyd looks really, really good in the middle of that defense. So, hey, they go out and get a lockdown cornerback. That could be a really, really good defense in the near future.
And that's kind of a weak division.
Absolutely. Yep.
So,
yeah, I was actually going to say my team would be the Indianapolis Colts, dependent on what quarterback they bring in, because I think that is a winnable division. Tennessee, they run a tight ship. They're well coached, but Derrick Henry's getting a little older. Who knows what's going on with Tannehill? I don't think they have the most dynamic team. I think they're getting by with good coaching and just solid play and in a really weak division. So if Indy can sign the right free agent quarterback, I threw out the name Jimmy G to a couple people at work. I feel like would be a good fit. Not like Jimmy G's a top 5 quarterback, but if you get the right guy in there, they've got Pittman, they've got Pierce, they've got Moelle Cox, Jelani Woods, and obviously JT looks just like he did before he got injured. JT is going to have a huge bounce back year next year if he gets the right quarterback, and their defense is legitimate. So I'm looking for a big rebound from the Colts.
So Jimmy G, as much as I hate watching him beat the Packers in the playoffs, because I feel like it's happened a couple times, that guy is a fucking winner. He is. And I agree 100%. I thought he would go to the Colts last year, and they ended up trading for Matt Ryan. I'm not entirely sure why they didn't go and make that move. It's looking good for the 49ers, though, being able to hang on to him this year from what happened to Trey Lance. But Jimmy G eats on play action, and if he's able to hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor, I think that's going to be a really, really good fit. I agree 100%. It's not like that's an offense that spreads out. He's going to be something that he's used to. Hand the ball off, throw to 2 solid receivers on the outside, and a couple decent tight ends, and man, just eat on that play action. And another team I thought that Jimmy G would do a really, really good job on, and that's if the New York Giants decide to move on from Daniel Jones. I think it's a very similar situation there with Saquon. As long as they go and get another weapon, I want to know what the hell they've been doing. What's going on in the Giants building when it comes to wide receivers. It's just a disaster there. But I think he would be a good fit in New York as well. So so you have the Jacksonville, John, you had the Jags, Dan, you had the Colts. I had the Jags on my list as well, but a team that we had talked about a couple times already tonight is I think the Detroit Lions are going to take a step forward, because I think they're also going to go out and get a quarterback in this draft. And like you said, John, and then they're having Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra, and DeAndre Swift. Even though he had to split a lot of carries with Jamal Williams this year, he's still a hell of a back. You know, they went and got rid of TJ Hawkinson to a division rival, which is really surprising to me. But they seem to be doing just fine at the tight end spot. They hung in there with the Bills last week on Thanksgiving, and then I think they won 2 games prior to that. So
yeah, they've been good
in a row. They're looking better already. So I think they're gonna take a good step forward too.
That's also why I think Jeff Saturday could actually be a good coach. I don't think a head coach has to be this brainiac of everything anymore. If you look at the Detroit Lions, MCDC is not Bill Belichick. He's not Mike Tomlin. But what he does is he drives the culture more than anything and sets the expectation for that franchise. And then he lets his coordinators and his other coaches be the brains of those rooms. So, like it or hate it with the Jeff Saturday signing as a temporary coach, if they do want to go with him long term, I actually think there's an avenue for that to work out if he has the right coordinators with him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It reminds me of that. What's the show where the guy
Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso, that's what it is. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter what the
show.
sport is, Nick. It's just you just got to get the locker room right, and
gotta believe.
Yeah, and you just got to believe. Exactly right.
Yep, I love that show. Talking about coaches though, I know when I think it was when Dave was on, actually, we had talked about a coach. We talked about coaches that we would kind of want to start with, and I chose Mike McDaniel. Have you seen some of these videos of Mike McDaniel on the sideline with Tua? It's fucking hysterical. He's just talking mad shit to him. Like, this is just like when Tua in like a TV timeout, Tua's just throwing it on the field or whatever, and he's walking back and forth with the mic saying, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure Georgia's the best team in college football, but don't tell that to Tua," even though Tua can hear him in this fucking earpiece. Just all the shit he says on the sidelines. It's just hysterical. I love that guy. He's such a character.
I would love to play for a guy like that. Same thing with MCDC Detroit. Oh my God. Like, it made me want to go throw the pads on again watching Hard Knocks this year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, look at Mike McDaniel, 5'9", 180 pounds. He's a man's man, dude.
Probably soaking wet, dude.
He's a man's man. Yeah, you should see the picture they have of him on Wikipedia. He has a Rise Up Recycle shirt on. It's like promoting recycling when he was in Atlanta. Yeah.
John, before we wrap up, I want to make sure I get this last question in. Do you have a Super Bowl prediction for us for the season?
Oh yeah, this is good. I like this. AFC, I think I would go with the Chiefs. And the NFC, I think, will be the Eagles, just because I think they're a tough out. So I think they can beat anyone. So I think it'll be the Chiefs and Eagles, and I think in that matchup, I think the Chiefs would win.
Okay. And then follow up to that. So that's what you think is going to be. What do you want to see in the Super Bowl? Now, you got to be realistic. You can't say Packers and
yeah.
But realistic for a chance of who's going to go. What is the most exciting matchup that you want to see in the Super Bowl this year? And then Nick, same question to you after him.
I would say, honestly, I think like young quarterbacks in the Super Bowl would be most exciting. So on the NFC side, someone like Jalen Hurts, I'm trying to think of any other young quarterbacks on the NFC side that are on a Daniel Jones. Um, let me see who else. Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts would be the most fun to me on the NFC side. On the AFC side, I think Tua would be fun to watch. Because everyone is kind of down on him.
And that would be interesting because those are two former teammates on Alabama who
Oh,
played
that's who got
together, and
benched.
Jalen Hurts was benched for Tua.
I think
That
that
would
would be
be
as
a
good as it
huge
gets.
storyline.
Yeah, that would be as good as it gets. I think I forgot about their situation in college. So that would be
Two
my
very
pick.
dynamic offenses.
Yeah, and don't
yeah.
forget 2 more Alabama wide receivers on one on each team as well, and Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. So
That'd be
that would
freaking sweet.
That would be interesting. That's a really, really good question. I guess you could have your who you think's going to be it, but who would be my in a realistic matchup that I think would be really exciting? Well, in talking young quarterbacks and guys that are just fucking ballers, I want to see Joe Burrow back in the Super Bowl in a really in the worst way. I think he would. I want to see him win one, and he is. And that fucking guy, and you see it even in the Super Bowl. Did you see that in the like kind of now? They're playing little clips. He had never met Von Miller before, and then in the Super Bowl, he was like after each play. This is in the middle of the game. Never met the guy even before it started. In the middle of the game, he just kept, "Hey Von, hey Von, Von." It took him like 3 plays, and finally he goes, "Hey Von, I'm Joe. Nice to meet you." Finally, he caught his attention. The dude's just funny. He's a fucking baller. I want to see him in the Super Bowl again. And but on the NFC side, I guess I don't think they're gonna get there. I don't think the Eagles are gonna get there. I really don't. That would be an exciting offensive matchup. The Eagles and the Bengals. I would love to see the Dolphins there too, just because to see. Could you imagine the Mike McDaniel pressers at the Super Bowl and during media week? That'd be fantastic. But I think a fun one would be to see for an offensive anyways, but if you want to kind of see a grinded out game, the Niners, it would be kind of a fun story to see them in the Super Bowl with the whole all the Trey Lance drama and Jimmy G kind of reemerging from the ashes, so to speak, here from the
Like a
beginning of the year.
phoenix.
That's right.
Yes.
Almost every year I root for an NFC team when Green Bay is not in it, just because I'm like I feel like the NFC is more like the home side, you know. But this year I feel like the only teams that can make it from the NFC are like my least favorite teams in the NFL. So hopefully it's Buffalo or KC and they just beat the shit out of whoever they're playing. Dallas,
Yeah.
Minnesota, Philly, San Fran, don't care. Go Buffalo or go KC.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not anyone from the AFC like I would hate to see in it. You know, the only one I really cheer against anymore is Tom Brady, I would say.
Yeah.
So
Well, I don't think you're gonna have to see him anymore after this year. I really don't. But you know,
Please.
I at the same time, I could see Tom Brady going 8-9, winning the NFC South because it's so fucking
Shit.
bad, and
Yep.
making
Yeah.
a deep playoff run. I could
Did
see
you
it
see
just
that? I
because it's
forget his name. He used to be he's on like all the shock jock shows, but he had Nick Wright. Nick Wright had that take where he's like, Tom Brady is gonna go 8-9, win the NFC South. He's gonna get a home game against Daniel Jones,
yeah.
gonna win, and then
Oh,
he's gonna
yeah.
get Geno Smith or Jimmy Garoppolo, and then he's just gotta win one game to go to his 40th Super Bowl. And he was like,
Yep.
and we're watching it, we're like, shit, that could happen.
Yep.
It really
Yep.
could. Yeah.
Yep. Hell yeah. Well, anything you guys have anything else to add before we wrap this bad boy up?
One more question for you, Nick. Sorry, you can go after this, John. One more question. I hate asking this because I hate tanking and I hate the whole bullshit that MLB and basketball does. But deep inside your heart, do you kind of hope Green Bay loses out so we can get a good draft pick finally?
If we lose this week against the Bears, then I guess I'll take it. I'll take it if it happens. But
I know you don't
Dude.
want to say yes because like it's so unethical, but
yeah, but I still don't know where you. I mean, obviously this team isn't what we thought it was. at the beginning of the year, but I just don't know where. If you end up with a top 5 pick, like where do you go? What do you do?
I don't know, but it makes draft day more fun.
Yeah, that's
They'll
true.
take a linebacker. They'll take another linebacker.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's draft another corner and
Yeah.
let's draft another man corner and play zone.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll be the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great fit. Maybe Jimmy Leonard will come to fucking Green Bay after getting that. But yeah, that fucking zone defense and all those man guys we have. It's a really good point. It's whatever. Well, John, got any
Hey.
last thoughts?
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, go make sure you tune into the Cornhuskers basketball game after this, because I think it's going to be a really good one.
I do want to I really do want to add that as a segment, and each week we'll keep an eye out on how the Cornhuskers are doing.
They're going to be great, Nick.
I know I really do. I hear you, and I'm excited to see how they progress over this next week. And
you and I both. I can't wait to watch them cut down the nets.
Yep, and I was really sad that we didn't get any selfies from David tonight of him and at the game, but
he's probably stewing. He's sitting there just.
They're up big already. They're up 9-5 on Boston College. So.
God, that's a barn burner. Dave's just probably just smiling from cheek to cheek.
Hey, as much as I love the Badgers, that's like a halftime score with them. It's like 16-14 at halftime, and you're like, wait, football's on tonight?
Yeah.
No.
No shit.
Yep. Well, thanks guys.
One other comment. Sorry, Nick,
Yes.
before Nick, because I want to hear if you have Nick's notes. But for our viewers out there on YouTube, let's try to get some comments and some action on YouTube. So I'm going to do a little fun thing this week. I want everyone who views this to comment on our YouTube video who you think the fantasy player of the week is going to be this week, and I will send you a little gift through the mail. Ooh. So comment your favorite player. I will pick a winner on next week's broadcast, and we'll reach out to you, and we will send you the first Everyone Hates the Commissioner prize. What do you think?
Free shit.
Hey, John, that is your middle name, buddy. You should
look at
make sure to comment.
I'll go comment, Dan.
John, you can win. Nick, you're not allowed.
Oh. John frees me, Opime. We love you, buddy.
That's right. Hey, thanks for having me on again, guys. Have a good night.
Yep. All right, John, you too. Thanks again. Thanks for being on. Dan, thanks for running the slides. Appreciate you as always. And we'll talk to you, everybody, next week. All right.
So long.